December 25th, 1776, George Washington, under immense odds, crossed the Delaware. And not only crossed the Delaware, but then went to battle in Trenton and won. 99% of the people in our country were unaware of the significance of that date when it occurred and that event when it occurred. Sean, I contend that the modern day version of George Washington crossing the Delaware occurred this past week, the day before Thanksgiving, November 25th, 2020. What happened? Well, General Flynn, an innocent patriot, was issued a pardon of innocence. That allowed General Flynn back on the battlefield.
Hey friends, welcome back. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thanks for finding me on BitChute, Parler, Rumble, Odyssey. I don't know where you're finding me, sgtreport.tv or sgtreport.com. It doesn't matter. You're here, and I'm very grateful for that. I'm also very grateful to have on the line my longtime friend, Dr. Dave Janda, Operation Freedom. This is a man who has been breaking news, a patriot on the front lines, trying to rout out those that would topple our republic. David, welcome back.
Sean, it's an honor to be back on the SGT Report platform, and YouTube and Google and Twitter, they've done a significant disservice to our country and the future of our country by deplatforming people such as yourself and Dave from X22 Report and Sarah Westall and Brang Medic, and there's a cast of thousands, unfortunately. And I guess what time of day it is, we're still there on Operation Freedom on YouTube, barely. Getting yellowed all the time. And probably one of the most important interviews I had done was taken down on Election Day with General McInerney about how we taped it actually live on our radio show on Sunday, November 1st, 2 days before the election, about how the deep state was going to steal the election through cyber warfare. And we did that interview from 4:30 to 5 p.m. Eastern on the radio show live. We immediately flipped it up onto YouTube. It went nuts as far as the view count. And on Tuesday morning, Election Day, at 7:11 in the morning, I got notification that we had violated community standards. I had a strike against me, and that YouTube presentation with General McInerney was being taken down. And just as you did, you have to try to find an alternative means of getting the information out. So what we did is through my IT team and Nick Ruiz, who's fantastic, and his team, they flipped the interview, got it onto our website, davejanda.com. Folks can now view it. It's in this red box toward the top. And it I believe, is one of the most important interviews I have done. And I've done the radio show for 10 years now, Operation Freedom.
Yeah, and I want to talk to you about that interview because I think people are getting a little confused. Hammer, scorecard, and then there's Dominion, and Eric Comer is on the run. All right, we got to talk about all of that. Maybe you can help break that down for people. But first, just to frame this up, you're coming to us from Michigan, right, where Governor Whitmer, I'm seeing on your Twitter feed, gave almost $25 million of Michigan taxpayer money to Dominion?
Isn't that a special gift? Oh, she's
unbelievable.
She's like the Grinch who wants to steal everybody's Thanksgiving and Christmas, but not Dominion's. Oh, no, there's plenty of bucks for them. It'd be interesting, Sean. Here's an interesting exercise, I think, for all of us to do, is to follow the greenbacks, right? So money's going to Dominion. Is it really staying there? Or is it flowing into politicians' hands and through the back door after these contracts are awarded? It's a very interesting question, but yes, here I am, Michigan, in what I call the largest POW camp in all of North America. We are constantly having our freedoms and liberties stripped by a totalitarian government run by, who I call Corona Gretchen or Typhoid Whitmer or whichever you prefer.
Yeah, the Grinch who stole the Republic. All right. Well, let me ask you this. You mentioned
Gretch the Grinch, we call her.
Gretch the Grinch. All right. Well, your interview with General Tom McInerney was very, very important. And so I want to ask you this because you mentioned in that interview they would attack via cyberspace. I tweeted out on November 26th, because I'm putting the pieces of the puzzle together as well. Fact, real Donald Trump, our president, knows our nation is literally at war. Think his Space Force. Not outer space, cyberspace. We were attacked by enemies foreign and domestic on November 4th in the wee hours of the morning with those ballot dumps. Big tech, mainstream media, and demonic Democrats are all co-conspirators. This is a war for the very republic itself. And then if you jump down to my third part of that tweet, what is happening right now will be talked about for generations. The outcome will be one of two things: a restoration of the Republic of the United States or the complete destruction of it. And then I quoted Sidney Powell, "We are living through the most important 2 months of our republic." What say you, Dave?
What I say is you are light years ahead of the crowd, as per routine, Sean. What you just voiced from November 26th gave people, Patriots, an incredible heads up. And it's what we've tried to do as well on our platform. And might I say, what everyone in the independent media, separate from the bought-off lamestream fake media, which is unfortunately some people still tune into them. And it's one big psyops, one big psychological operation. The bought-off lamestream fake media, just to say it again, is a tentacle of the deep state. And their goal is to demoralize folks, to suppress people, to oppress people, and their ultimate goal is to strip people of their freedoms and liberties. And I think even the most diehard of people, in where I live in the People's Republic of Ann Arbor, as I call it, up until Election Day, there were still a large number of people who felt that that was conspiracy theory. Since Election Day, a number of people who have been adamant opponents of mine, and every word out of their mouth is Janda's a conspiracy theorist, have contacted me and said, you know what? I thought you were really off. But in fact, you and the other folks in the independent media are not conspiracy theorists. It might be conspiracy, but it's reality. And if they're saying that in the People's Republic of Ann Arbor, where there's still impeach Bush signs up, who, by the way, is a globalist and deep state player, but still nonetheless, there's still people that were playing the right-left game when people like yourself and myself and Dave and Sarah and have been saying, look, there's one political party in Washington. They're called the Republicrats. And they're all owned and operated by a criminal syndicate. And again, folks that fought me on that, since I've been doing the radio show for 10 years and saying that, have now come to me and said, you know what? I thought that was just a gimmick. I thought that was hyperbole. But in fact, if you look at these people like Ryan and Romney, and you name the deep state player with an R after them, you're right. They are all one political party.
Right.
They're owned and they're controlled.
Yeah.
And so the silver lining in this dark cloud is that there has been an awakening of some of the folks that categorize themselves as progressives and in fact were zealots in the progressive movement, have now come forward and said, oh, wow, was I scammed? Now, here's the problem, Sean. As you know, time is short. And the question is it too late for that awakening for us to make a difference? And I contend it is not too late.
No, it's not too late. And I want to talk about the vote stealing in a second. But first, let me ask you, you mentioned Paul Ryan. I tweeted out last night, we will never forget who the traitors are. Paul Ryan, Mitt Romney, and you got John Kerry over there at the World Economic Forum saying the Great Reset is an excellent idea because we need to kill Trumpism. We need to put an end to populism. What does that mean? No more sovereignty for the United States. Sell us out to the globalists. In John Kerry's own words, these people truly are traitors, and we are at war. Now, I want to ask you about the war in which the president and our nation is engaged. It wasn't our choice. We were attacked on November 3rd, November 4th. The president has since fired Esper and put in a swamp drainer. He has also let go of the Pentagon Advisory Board, including Kissinger, Albright, and some Clinton holdovers. So what do you make of this? It's very clear to me that the president knows he is in a war, but the media is going to cover it up and say he's nuts and he needs to go. And when he tries to stop the coup, the attempted coup, which is currently in progress, they're going to claim that he is attempting a coup. So we really live in an upside-down world, and I don't know how we educate all our friends, neighbors, and colleagues to what's really going on here.
Well, the deep state is very good at painting us with a brush of which they are guilty of. Just look at that 4-year Russian collusion hoax. That it was reportedly, according to them, it was the Russians colluding with the Trump administration, the Trump campaign, when in fact, it was Russia colluding with Hillary Clinton, the DNC, to create this phony dossier, the Steele dossier, which was the backdrop for the fake Russian collusion hoax. See, this is what they do. They project. What they project onto us, the freedom movement, what they are in fact guilty of.
Right.
And one of the things they're doing right now, Sean, it's very interesting, is they're saying, well, President Trump and, well, they don't even call him President, Trump and his backers are trying to disenfranchise voters, minorities. No. It has been documented in detail, which we'll talk about, how this election was stolen, at least temporarily stolen, by the deep state. You talk about disenfranchising people. How about stealing their vote? I'm going to give you one statistic just to start out, just as a little tease here. One of the best election analysts in the world is a fellow by the name of Phil Evans. And he's dissected a number of elections. And he was actually just on my platform, and we're going to upload that interview in the next couple of days. But let me give you a little taste of what he said. In the state of Michigan, they looked at a number of counties, 3 counties in particular. And CNN had done an exit poll of minorities in those counties. And CNN concluded that minorities, blacks, Hispanics, and Asians, voted for President Trump about 18%. Now, I believe that's a low number. And the reason why I believe that is I have friends who run businesses in all 3 of those large counties, and they are actually minority business owners. And I asked them, do you believe this 18% figure? They go, absolutely not. They go, many folks, especially in the minority community, are not going to tell a stranger that they voted for Donald Trump. They go, if we look at our companies and when we talk to our friends who also run minority-based companies, you're looking at a figure in Michigan of the minority vote that's about at least 30% and up to 35 to 38%. Okay? All right. Now, Phil Evans and his team looked at demographics in these 3 large counties. Sean, I'm going to get, and in particular, they looked at the minority vote. They went to the precinct level, dug through the votes, and take a guess on election day. And when you combine the absentees and the vote by mail ahead of time, take a guess what they determined was the reported vote of minorities in those same counties that CNN said it was 18%. And my friends that run the businesses say it was between at least 30 and up to 38%. Take a guess what number was the actual number when they looked at the voting records.
Well, I don't know, but I can tell you this. I don't believe that in some counties in Michigan the turnout was 150, 300% because there's so much incredible enthusiasm for Biden that people were literally climbing out of their graves to vote for the guy.
Right. So the actual number, Sean, you would say, okay, well, if CNN came up with 18, but on the ground, people are saying it was like 30, 35, 38. The number that they determined, looking at the actual votes that were recorded, was 0%. 0.
Oh, you're saying that 0 votes for Trump were recorded by these demonic Democrats that were doing the vote counting? Well,
in the minority communities. So when these hypocrites when these hypocrites in the deep state are out there saying, oh, minorities, black folks, Asian folks, Hispanic folks, they're being disenfranchised because President Trump would like an audit of the votes. Oh, let me tell you why they don't want an audit of the votes. And not just a recount. Because if you're recounting garbage, you're going to end up with garbage.
Right.
An audit is a dissection of the votes, looking at them, each one.
Well, that's right. They're saying if you want to recount Detroit, you're a racist. If you want to recount Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, you're a racist. So there's so many obvious smoking gun evidences of vote fraud, which CNN completely ignores, like this one. How in the world did they mail out 1.8 million ballots in the state of Pennsylvania? They say 1.462 million were returned, but the total that was on the Department of State website in Pennsylvania was 2.589 million, and now they've deleted that. President Trump says they created 1,126,940 votes out of thin air, then deleted that information from their own website. The world is watching. We are engaged in a war for the republic here, Dave, and this president cannot stand down. He is obligated to the Constitution and we the people to see this thing through to the end. And I don't even care if that means getting the Joint Chiefs and the Pentagon involved, the military. I don't care, because the alternative is the deep state wins their coup, they're successful, and we lose our republic.
Yes, this is a war, not just for this election. And this is not overstating it, Sean. You've said it correctly. This is about about freedom versus oppression, about free markets and capitalism versus not just socialism. No. Communism, totalitarianism. And the concern I have, Sean, is I believe there are a number of people in President Trump's administration and even some of his inner circle who are telling him to pull a Nixon from 1960, to pull a Richard Nixon from when he left the presidency, to pulling an Al Gore.
But can I ask you something about that? Because I know that's true, but here's what I don't understand. Do those people not care about the republic like you and I do? Because we know what's coming. See, I don't think the average person, especially the people that voted for Biden, and there wasn't 80 million of them, maybe there was 60 million, 65 million, maybe as much as 70 million, but there wasn't 80 million people that voted for Biden. But those that did have no idea what's coming. Klaus Schwab's Great Reset. Look at the lockdowns. Look what they're doing to people in New Zealand. They're talking about quarantine camps for people that test positive, or even for people that don't and refuse to get tested. Look what's going on in Canada. Look what's going on in Australia. That is all coming here. And Biden has already told us it's going to be a dark winter. It'll be a dark winter in perpetuity, David, because these people have sold out to globalists. So who on earth in the Trump administration would ever want to stand down to that? That's the part I don't get. This is what we were born for. We were born for this fight.
I agree with you. And I can only assume that either they don't realize the significance of the war we are in now, or two, they are deep state operatives that are planted there. It can't be anything else, Sean.
Right. They're
either ignorant or they're complicit. I mean, let's not paint a happy face on the people in some of his inner circle and some people in his administration that are saying, Mr. President, for the good of the country, concede. Anyone who says that to him, any American, not just in his inner circle, is either ignorant of this war of oppression versus freedom, or they're complicit in this criminal act of a new coup, that being the stealing of the election.
Right. And here's the part I just cannot reconcile. I just don't understand. I mean, they must think that it'll be just like 4 years under Obama, or 8 years, or 8 years under Clinton, right? The nation wasn't completely destroyed. We didn't completely lose the Second Amendment. We didn't completely lose our Fourth Amendment. We didn't completely lose control of our borders. We didn't completely lose our republic. But under a Biden administration, I think that's what's coming.
Well, I agree with you, Sean, but you know what? We came really, really close, and in some respects, we actually went over the line when it came to Obama. But it's not just Obama. It's not just Obama. It was George W. Bush, globalist before him, Bill Clinton, globalist before him, and George H.W. Bush, globalist before him. The cherry on top of that, if you will, totalitarian Sunday, globalist Sunday, deep state Sunday was going to be Hillary Clinton. And Donald Trump ruined their parfait.
Right.
And they haven't gotten over it since.
Right.
So now, Sean, you're right. This is not going to, people say, oh, Joe Biden, I mean, look at, he can barely put his own depends on, for goodness sakes. He's not going to beat, really? Because it's not Joe Biden, it's the people around him and behind him. And to just say this is going to be Obama 2.0, no. They're going for all of it. That is why they perpetrated this crime of stealing the election. Look, right here in Michigan, the week before the election, Obama came up here to Flint with Biden. Sean, they had 76 people in cars.
It's unbelievable.
Okay. Meanwhile, the night before the election, and he was in Michigan twice the day before the election, there was one crowd of 40,000, one crowd of 50,000 people. And Joe Biden's pulling 76 with Obama, the great, charismatic, 76.
Yeah, there's no interest in what they're selling. And so they had to pull this off, and they did it in such a blatant way. That's the part that people can't figure out. It's like, this is insane that CNN could say there's no voter fraud when it is so blatant.
And that makes them complicit in the crime, and as does Fox. Sean, you and I, for years, have taken a lot of heat by saying that Fox is controlled opposition, that they're part of the problem and not the answer. And the reason why we could easily say that is because if you look at their management, they sit on the Council on Foreign Relations, a globalist think tank, and an implementation tank of globalist deep state policies. But Murdoch sit there. And people wonder, they go, what? Why is Brett Baer and Martha McCallum? And come on, it's controlled opposition. Other than Lou Dobbs and Elizabeth McDonald and Maria Bartiromo, Judge Janine, Jesse Walters. Other than just a couple. No, sorry. And Sean, you could smell it coming. The guy that they put in charge 2 weeks before I started shooting my mouth off about this guy they were put in charge of the decision election desk, this Ashari guy. This guy is bought and paid for deep state puppet. And that was the guy running the decision desk. They tried something fast in Georgia at the beginning. That backfired. Then they moved the firewall to Arizona, and we all knew what happened there.
Well, let me ask you this, because I know we don't have a lot of time today, but let's talk about Dominion. Let's talk about the hammer. Let's talk about scorecard, because we know that there was unprecedented levels of mail-in ballot fraud, all right? That alone is smoking gun evidence. There's so much there, it's enough to turn over many of these states. But in addition to that, we have Sidney Powell talking about Dominion. We have Eric Comer on the run. Okay, the software engineer, the mind behind Dominion, he's on the run. Where is Eric Comer? Where are all of the people at Dominion who have terminated or erased or tried to purge their LinkedIn statuses and ties to the company? So we can talk about Dominion, but let's also talk about hammer and scorecard. It gets a little confusing. How did they steal the election? We know they were behind so much in the middle of the night. They had to close everything down. Right? At 3, 4, 5 in the morning, then suddenly all these magic ballots appear, magic votes appear. Now, were those mail-in ballots, or was that Dominion, or what are your thoughts on that?
So a couple things. Go back to Stalin. Quote, I consider it, Soviet dictator, I consider it completely unimportant who in the party will vote or how, but what extraordinarily important is this. Who will count the votes and how, end quote. And how. That's Dominion, hammer, and scorecard. Now, this was, and people need to realize this, was there the dead vote? Yeah, absolutely. Was there ballot stuffing? I grew up in Chicago, the old suburbs, the old Chicago stuffing Mayor Jay Daley technique? Absolutely. Was there fraud with the absentees? Absolutely. Was there fraud with the mail-ins? Absolutely. But where the real steal came in was through the internet, electronically, cyber warfare. And the only way to categorize this, because they want you to look at the shiny mirror. Oh, look at the dead vote. Just look at the dead vote. Oh, no. Yeah, look at the dead vote. But let's look at everything else, because the real steal came electronically. This is a multi-level, multifaceted, coordinated criminal vote fraud operation. Now, that being said, let's talk about Dominion Hammer Scorecard, okay? Back on March 19th, 2017, General Tom McInerney, with the support of Admiral Ace Lyons, came on my platform, March 19th, 2017, over 3.5 years ago, and said, listen, there's this illegal surveillance system that Obama, Brennan, Clapper, Comey, and Mueller were running that was illegally surveilling people. And off of this illegal surveillance program, platform, Hammer, it could also send what are called exploits. Think of them as missiles. And these missiles did different things. One of the missiles is called Scorecard. And what Scorecard does is it alters the votes. Okay, Sean, let me give you an example that I used on a YouTube, and people seem to like it, so let me try it on you. Sean, so I love to go to Costco, okay? Point A is my home. Costco is point B, okay? I have 4 buddies with me, and they all love going to Costco. And so we're at my house, and there are 3 of my buddies go in the back seat of the car. One of my buddies goes in the passenger seat. And as we are pulling out of the garage, a guy comes up to the car with Dominion on his name and says to my buddy in the passenger seat, get out. And by the way, all 5 of us are Trump voters. Dominion comes in, opens the door and says, you in the passenger seat, out. You're coming with me. And they replace that, my buddy in the passenger seat, with a guy who's a Biden supporter. And Dominion goes, and now get on the highway. The highway being the information highway, being the internet. Now, so when I left my house, there were 5 people in the car, Sean. 5 Trump supporters. Now I'm going on the highway to Costco, and I got my 3 buddies and me, 4 Trump supporters, but I got this bumbling idiot next to me wearing Depends, who's a Biden supporter. I'm going down the highway. As I'm going down the highway, this van pulls up beside me. And on the van, it says Scorecard, pulls me over to the side of my information highway, the highway I'm on, 275, the internet, pulls me over. A guy gets out of the Scorecard van wearing a Scorecard shirt, and he pulls out a hammer, and he breaks the windows, breaks into the car. That's what Hammer does. It breaks into databases. Okay? The database being my car, because when data is transferred through the highway, it's like cars going down a highway in packets. The guy takes a hammer out, and the hammer, the computer tool, hacks into systems. It breaks in. This guy, he takes out a hammer, hits it, breaks into the car. He pulls my 3 buddies out of the back seat and replaces them with 3 bumbling Biden supporters, again, all wearing Depends. And the Scorecard dude says, Janda, go to Costco. Go. Well, I drive to Costco. Now, when I get to Costco, there are 5 people in the car, just as there were 5 people in the car when I left my house. When I left my house, there were 5 people that supported Trump. But when I got to Costco, there was 1 person supporting Trump and 4 supporting Biden.
But Dave, it's even worse than that, because in Michigan we saw, 129,000 or 140,000 mystery ballots show up in the middle of the night, and I think they were pretty much all for Biden?
Well, wait, the story gets better, because when I get out of the car with my 4 people in Depends that are for Biden, another guy from Scorecard comes up to me and says, see these other 100 people in diapers and Depends that all are Biden supporters? You're going to use your card and say they're all members of your family and have them get into Costco free of charge.
Yeah. Well, let me show people this. Let's bring a little levity to this discussion before we round out the discussion with what you think might be going on internationally, the Frankfurt, Germany server farm, etc. But this is the man that we're told got more votes than any president, than any candidate in the history of U.S. elections, including Donald Trump, who had massive rally after rally after rally after rally, and, car parades going 96 miles long in Arizona. This is the man. He doesn't know what a psalm is, right? He pretends to be a Christian. He doesn't know what the psalms are. Unbelievable. This is, if the mainstream media has their way, if the deep state coup plotters have their way, this will be your president, folks, right here.
And if we do, and I'm sure we can proclaim the palmist who wrote these following words.
True international effort to pressure.
And if we do, and I'm sure we can proclaim the palmist who wrote these following words.
True international effort to pressure.
Okay, that is admittedly one of the funnier things I've seen in a long time. But what's not funny is that bumbling imbecile is going to be the president if Donald Trump stands down. And that bumbling imbecile is in the pocket of China. He is a national security threat, which brings our conversation full circle. If our president, who does put our nation first, knows firsthand that Biden is a national security threat, and he's the head of the Biden crime family, and his son is hopelessly compromised to the Russians and to the Chinese, so is Joe Biden, the whole family. This is a very serious national security issue. So in your view, what are the conversations happening with the Joint Chiefs? What are the conversations happening with the president's inner circle? What are the conversations happening with Chris Miller, who now the special forces report directly to?
And there's another name that's there's some very silver linings going on here. Chris Miller is an incredible silver lining as the acting secretary of the Department of Defense, but he named the division chief in charge of special operations, I believe one of the most brilliant people in our government, Ezra Cohen Watnick. He's a civilian. And he was actually, if you will, a protege of General Michael Flynn when General Flynn was the director of the Defense Intelligence Agency. So I do believe this house cleaning, because it's not just Esper who went, as you know, Sean. It was about 5 or 6 down from him as well, got the boot. That's a very, very positive development. And in fact, what President Trump has done this past week is cut the CIA out of, if you will, the intelligence briefings and the intelligence apparatchik within the administration, which again, I believe, based on their track record, is a very, very positive finding. There's a couple things that I want to quickly mention here.
Can I say one thing real quick before you move on? It's Jeffrey Prather, a retired military guy. Jeffrey Prather believes that Ezra Cohen Watnick is Q. Just a side note, folks. I mean, this stuff goes deep. Just saying. Just saying. If white hats knew all along, does Trump have everything? Think of the executive order signed September 12, 2018. Executive order against foreign interference in our elections. In my view, Dave, they have everything. They've got it all. They watched this happen in real time. So then, then there's the Frankfurt, Germany server farm raid. Maybe they literally have it all. But back to you. I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No. And I agree with you 110%. Many people believe, you mentioned that executive order September 12, 2018 about foreign interference in elections and the ramifications of that potentially being the case. Many people say, well, yeah, he was pretty lucky on that, putting that out there. Well, I don't think he was lucky at all. I think he saw it coming. I think he saw this coming years ago. And in fact, in Sidney Powell, who I consider a friend, Sidney has been talking about releasing the Kraken. And many people are like, oh, what? Releasing the Kraken? Well, that's from Clash of the Titans, the movie. That's Greek mythology, Zeus unleashing this sea monster that destroys things. Well, yeah, and Sidney was talking about that. But this from Sidney Powell's Kraken is Department of Defense cyber warfare program, We Are at War. Who knew? It is a Department of Defense cyber warfare program. It tracks systems and acquires evidence of nefarious activities and crimes committed by the deep state. The Kraken is a Department of Defense run cyber warfare program that tracks and hacks various other systems to acquire evidence of nefarious actions by the deep state. In fact, it's my understanding Kraken is run through the 305 Military Intelligence Battalion. I believe they're based in Arizona. In fact, I believe that when all this was transpiring on November 3rd and 4th, these cyber warfare specialists not only knew all about it, but were watching it happen and documenting it. And that is why that executive order is so important. Sean, many people are, and I would use the word despondent about where we are now. They don't have any hope. And the last thing I want to do is give people hopium, but I do want to give them reality. I want to take people back. My mom was a history teacher. And December 25th, 1776, George Washington, under immense odds, crossed the Delaware. And not only crossed the Delaware, but then went to battle in Trenton and won. 99% of the people in our country were unaware of the significance of that date when it occurred and that event when it occurred. Sean, I contend that the modern day version of George Washington crossing the Delaware occurred this past week, the day before Thanksgiving, November 25th, 2020. What happened? Well, General Flynn, an innocent patriot, was issued a pardon of innocence. That allowed General Flynn back on the battlefield. Number two, Sidney Powell dropped what are considered legal MOABs, mother of all bombs, on Georgia and Michigan, which I believe will destroy the election fraud perpetrated by the deep state. And I'm going to come back to that in just a second. On that same day, Attorney Lynn Wood, a brilliant lawyer, won a victory in the 11th Circuit, which will lead to a hearing on the legitimacy of the vote in Georgia. On that same day, Rudy Giuliani led a team into a Senate hearing, public hearing in Pennsylvania. Devastating testimony was presented, which I believe will lead to a reversal of the vote, the fraudulent vote in Pennsylvania. And the Supreme Court on that same day, that night, stuffed Andrew Cuomo on religious freedom. If folks go to Sidney Powell's website, defendingtherepublic.org, they can donate to the Legal Defense Fund for every American for her and her team taking on the deep state. I've donated. I'm not a big one for legal defense funds. The only two legal defense funds I've ever donated to were General Flynn's and Defending the Republic by Sidney Powell, because I believe our country's on the line. When they go to that website, and times are tough, and I understand many people cannot donate, but they can give their time. The two lawsuits from Georgia and Michigan are there. They need to hit those links and they need to review them. They will become heartened when they see what those MOABs, mother of all bombs from a legal standpoint, what Sidney and her team unleashed on the deep state. That was the turning point of this war. Mark my words. People are going to look back on this in years and decades to come. And they're going to look at November 25th, 2020. And I want to just take you to one exhibit in those lawsuits. Exhibit 26 in the Georgia lawsuit is the same exhibit number 19 in the Michigan lawsuit. It's a declaration of an amazing patriot by the name of Dr. Naveed Keshavarz Mia. Now, I'm going to give you his background because this is really, really important. He has a bachelor's degree in electrical and computer engineering and a master's degree in electronics and computer engineering from George Mason University, a PhD degree in management of engineering and technology from Cal Southern University, and a doctoral degree in education from George Washington University. He has advanced training from the Defense Intelligence Agency, CIA, NSA, Department of Homeland Security of Office and Analysis, and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Not a bad pedigree, Sean. Okay, here's what he says. I am an expert in cybersecurity. During my career, I have conducted security assessment, data analysis, and security counterintelligence and forensics investigations on hundreds of systems. My experience spans 35 years performing technical assessment, mathematical modeling, cyber attack pattern analysis, and security counterintelligence linked to operators including China, Iran, North Korea, and Russia. I have worked as a consultant subject matter expert supporting the Department of Defense, FBI, U.S. intelligence community agencies such as the DIA, CIA, NSA, NGA, and the Department of Homeland Security. The United States intelligence community, well, here we go, has developed the Hammer and Scorecard tools, which were released by WikiLeaks and independently confirmed by Lieutenant General Thomas McInerney and Kirk Wiebe, former NSA official, and Dennis Montgomery, former CIA analyst. The Hammer and Scorecard capabilities are tradecrafts used by U.S. intelligence analysts to conduct what are called man-in-the-middle cyber attacks on foreign voting systems, including the Dominion voting system, Democracy Suite, and systems and software voting machines without leaving an electronic fingerprint. A couple things. That man-in-the-middle thing, Sean, that is Scorecard pulling in the van, pulling Dave Janda in his car over and knocking out the windows with a hammer and replacing the people in the car. That's man in the middle. And the other, when he's talking about these systems and software, it's not just Dominion. It's every software has a back door in it allowing Scorecard to work, to change votes. That's what he's saying. He goes, this system with Hammer and Scorecard affect voting machines without leaving an electronic fingerprint. As such, these tools are used by nefarious operators to influence voting systems by covertly accessing these software programs and altering the results in real time and without leaving an electronic fingerprint. He goes on, I have performed forensic analysis of electronic voting systems, including the Dominion Democracy Voting System, the ES&S, Cytel, SOE software, and Smartmatic systems used in hundreds of precincts in key battleground states. I have previously discovered major exploitable vulnerabilities in these systems that permit a nefarious operator to perform sensitive functions via its built-in covert backdoor. The backdoor enables an operator to access to perform system updates and testing via the internet without detection. However, it can also be used to conduct illicit activities such as shifting votes, deleting votes, adding votes in real time. These events can take place through the internet without leaving a trace. Now let's go to his conclusions. This is really important, and here's why it's important. He signed this under penalty of perjury. 1. 2, he is the foremost expert in cyber warfare. That's who's fighting for us. He's not on the deep state side. He's taken the deep state on. And if you want to have a person, a patriot, fighting for us, this is the guy. And who's working with him? Sidney Powell. Listen to his conclusions. I'm just going to read you a couple. The vote count distribution in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Arizona, Nevada, and Georgia are not based on normal system operation. Instead, they are caused by fraudulent electronic manipulation of the targeted voting machines. When analyzing the New York Times data, for example, for the 2020 election, I conclude that software algorithm manipulated votes, scorecard, scorecard algorithm. Boom, changing votes. Manipulated vote counts for between 1 and 2% of the precinct results to favor Vice President Biden. He goes on. Beginning at approximately 4:30 a.m. on November 4, 2020, the vote counts favored Vice President Biden by nearly 80% in many jurisdictions. The data variance favoring Vice President continued to accelerate after 4:30 a.m. on November 4, 2020, and continued until a momentum through November 9th, 2020. For example, in Pennsylvania, you mentioned that before, President Trump's lead of more than 700,000 count advantage was reduced to less than 300,000 in a few short hours, which does not occur in the real world without an external influence. Can you say hammer and scorecard? I conclude that manually feeding more than 400,000 mostly absentee ballots cannot be accomplished in a short time frame without illegal vote count alteration. Vice President Biden received more than 100% of the votes at 5:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on November 4, 2020, and again he received 99.61% of the votes at 2:23 p.m. Eastern Time on November 5th. A man-in-the-middle cyber attack, scorecard, hammer, was carried out by covert operators using sophisticated tools such as hammer and scorecard. The man-in-the-middle attack occurred in two ways. Initially, remote operatives used USB memory cards containing cryptographic keys and access system backdoors to alter the votes in battleground states. But subsequently, the results were forwarded to Cytel software servers located in Frankfurt, Germany, previously housed in Barcelona, Spain. The man-in-the-middle attack was structured to ensure sufficient data alteration had occurred prior to forwarding the tallied results to this Clarity Software electronic night reporting that the media reported. The reason the election data were forwarded overseas is to avoid detection and monitoring by the intelligence community to block the man-in-the-middle technique. I conclude that a combination of lost cryptographic key contained on stolen USB memory cards, serious exploitable system and software vulnerabilities, and operating system backdoors to the software, Dominion included, created the perfect environment to commit widespread fraud in all states where these systems were installed. My analysis of the 2020 election from the New York Times data shows statistical anomalies across the battleground state votes. These failures are widespread and systemic and sufficient to invalidate the vote counts. I conclude with high confidence that the election 2020 data were altered in all battleground states, resulting in hundreds of thousands of votes that were cast for President Trump to be transferred to Vice President Biden. These alterations were the result of a systemic and widespread exploitable vulnerability in Dominion software, Cytel software, Smartmatic systems that enabled operators to achieve the desired results. In my view, the evidence is overwhelming and incontrovertible. I declare under penalty of perjury, under the laws of the United States of America, that the foregoing is true and correct to the best of my knowledge. Navid Keshvaris, Niai.
Yeah, and that's a patriot. Well, look, you know what? I think the smoking gun here is just so obvious to any statistician, any researcher, anybody as knowledgeable as him. Russ Ramsland, of course, is another one, a researcher, and it's called drop and roll. So they had algorithms that they tried to fix the election with, but President Trump had so much overwhelming support coast to coast. The rallies were real. Okay, it's all quantifiable, real, organic, actual support. Biden couldn't get anybody to show up at all. So the algorithm, Sidney Powell has said, Trump broke the algorithms because of overwhelming support. And when they knew they were going to lose, they tried to close down the swing states, right? We're going to stop voting for tonight. That's when the drop happened, right? We got to give the spike, right? Give the spike, give the lead to Biden in the middle of the night. Statistically impossible, but that's the drop. And then the roll was keep it going at a percentage that would allow Biden to continue to maintain his lead no matter what, thereby stealing the election. So if I know it and you know it and it's treason, I really don't care what the courts do. Even if it comes down to the Supreme Court and they and they don't do the right thing. This is a national security issue, and I just don't see how President Trump can turn over the keys to the White House to somebody who is in the pocket of the Chinese under any circumstance.
It's not just turning over the keys to the White House. It's turning over the keys to our country, to totalitarianism and communism for the remainder of our country's history. It's that simple. That's what this is about. You know, in that video that was taken down with General McInerney that's now up on at davejanda.com in the red box if folks want to watch it. Remember, it was 2 days before the election. What did we say? That when with this algorithm that we were talking about, and credit should go to investigative journalist Mary Fanning Allen Jones, who had written an article on October 31st, the day before, on this issue. And General McInerney said the way we overcome this is massive voter turnout, because with massive voter turnout, it will expose the criminality of what they have done from a cyber standpoint, cyber security standpoint, and cyber warfare standpoint. Every American who went out and voted has had a role in taking down the deep state. But it cannot end there. Just as Americans flooded to the polls, and in so doing, they exposed the deep state, they need to get on the phone. And they need to call their congressmen and their senators in Washington. They need to call their governor, and they need to call their representatives in the House and Senate in their respective states and say, we're wise to this garbage. We got it. We know the facts. Not only fix it in the future, you're going to fix it right now. And in the state legislature, you're going to see electors that support and are going to vote for Donald Trump. Period. Period. We know the facts. We're not going to tolerate this. Number two, call the feds and say, call the member of your house. We're wise to this. If you don't start pushing this and stop hiding in a hole, which the vast majority of Republicans are doing, and the Democrats are just like, yeah, we're running out the clock. They need to realize if they continue to go along with this, whether they're a D or they're R, this is the last term they're going to be in, because they are going to be primaried out. And by the way, how many of these people that are sitting in their leather chairs saying, oh, well, we're just going to wait this out, how many of them actually got in fraudulently based on this system? That's what I want to know, because this just wasn't 2020 this was put into effect.
Right.
This wasn't just 2018. This wasn't just 2016. There is evidence I have seen from 2016, the analysis I've seen, that this was used on Bernie Sanders so that Hillary could win the primary. Yeah. So all these Bernie bros that might want to, hey, you know, if Biden doesn't win, I'm going to burn the house down. Really? Really? Because the people they should be looking at are Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Joe Biden. They're the ones who cheated their guy Bernie out of the 2016 election. And I believe when all is said and done, if you look at the primaries from 2020, well, all of a sudden Biden shot ahead of Bernie, I'll wager a donut on this, that they used the same thing, the same hammer scorecard platform on Sanders again.
Yeah.
So that Biden could win. So if the Bernie people, the BLM, Antifa have a problem with this, don't be looking at Trump. He's exposing it. Look at the people who took out Bernie, to all those people. Look at Biden. Look at Clinton. Look at Obama. Look at Brennan. Look at Clapper. Look at Comey. Those are the people who took out Bernie, and who took out God knows how many other politicians over the years, if not decades.
Yeah, 100%. And look, Bev Harris from Black Box Voting has been trying to expose this for way more than a decade.
Yes.
So this electronic vote fraud is absolutely nothing new. But it's the first time in history it's been this well documented, to my knowledge. It's never been more blatant. And again, it's an act of treason. So final question for you. If we know that Esper was fired and Chris Miller is in charge now in Special Operations Forces, all report directly to him and he's loyal to the president. And if this treason is well documented beyond a shadow of a doubt, provable in any court, especially a military court, do you think Mike Adams from Natural News might be right? And right now, as we speak, Special Forces operations are happening and traitors that can provide firsthand testimony to what happened are being rounded up. Your thoughts on that? Again, I ask the question, where's Comer? Where's Eric Comer?
Good question. And my hope is Mike Adams is correct. and what his sources are telling him. I find it, if you look at Chris Miller, the current acting Secretary of Defense, he's former Special Forces. He's the real deal. Ezra Cohen Watnick, who we spoke about before, who is now in charge of special operations, is the real deal. They are not just loyal to President Trump. My research shows that those individuals are loyal to the Constitution. And I believe we could not have finer people right now in those positions than Chris Miller and Ezra Cohen Watnick. And they are critical positions. Believe me, I've called for the firing of Haspel at the agency CIA, of Wray at the FBI for months. And I wasn't a fan of Esper. I believe he was playing on the wrong side. But I do believe that we are going to win this war. And I believe a significant component of that is because there are people such as Sidney Powell, General Flynn, who obtained a pardon of innocence. People need to realize this. The bought-off lamestream fake media are saying, oh, he pardoned us. No, General Flynn was found to be framed, targeted, and not prosecuted, persecuted. The Department of Justice dropped the case on him that it was fraud, that the forms were changed, that they lied about, that he didn't lie. The case against him was thrown out on May, I believe it was 8th, 2020. And here we are in November, the end of November, and President Trump had to issue a pardon. A pardon, as President Trump said, of innocence. He's innocent. The Department of Justice said, we're not prosecuting. This is wrong. After we're reviewing the evidence, evidence that showed he was innocent was hidden from him and his counselors, his attorneys. The people who interviewed him, Strzok and McKay, and not McKay, Strzok and
Page,
Patenka. They said he didn't lie when they interviewed him. They dropped the case, but a choke point. This is what the deep state does in every department. They have a choke point. The choke point was this judge, Emmett Sullivan, deep state. And all he was to do, a judge is there to judge. They can't prosecute. He started to prosecute General Flynn when the Department of Justice said, we're not prosecuting. A judge can't prosecute. Sullivan should be impeached for what he did.
100%.
But Sullivan never granted the motion for dismissal. And to get General Flynn back on the battlefield, that is why President Trump said, enough of this kabuki that's going on. Enough. This is a goat rodeo. You are making shambles of the Constitution, Sullivan. He's going to get a pardon of innocence, and he is. And so, by having General Flynn back on the battlefield, Sidney Powell dropping legal MOABs, we have Chris Miller at Department of Defense, acting head. We have Ezra Cohen Watnick. We have many Patriots. They fired this guy Krebs out of the Department of Homeland Security from CISA, that supposedly, right after the election said, oh, it was fine. Election integrity was fine. There were no problems. Really? Well, he got fired. Good. Don't let the door hit you in the butt on the way out of the door, you deep state puppet. No, they're getting rid of these people. Now, for some of us, it's kind of late in the game, but okay, better late in the game than after the game is completely over. But I do think we're going to win this because of the people, the tenacity, the perseverance, and the sacrifice all these people have gone through. I believe we're going to win this. But that doesn't mean everybody should sit on the couch and say, I'm going to have some popcorn and watch all this. No, every one of our listeners needs to take this broadcast, needs to take everything you do on SGT Report, what I try to do on Operation Freedom, and take it and network it to their friends, their families, their coworkers, their neighbors, and say, look, here is what's happening. Listen to these people. Just keep an open mind and ear to these people. Listen, watch, because in so doing, they will be educated with the facts, and in so doing, they become empowered. And then they go to their elected representative and say, we're wise. Stop this goat rodeo. Stop it. You either help try to fix this, not next week, no, next month, right now. You either try to fix it, or we're going to make sure you are not elected during the primary, let alone in a general. And that's what scares politicians the most. Not having enough money and the public wise to an issue that they can't get around. Those are the only two things they're concerned about.
All right. Well, look, here's the thing. I really do think that there are important, incredible, unbelievably patriotic, good things happening behind the scenes because, as you said, General Flynn is back on the battlefield. It's my understanding, according to Mike Adams, that his top secret security clearance has been reinstated. And President Trump cleaned house at the Pentagon. The Pentagon Advisory Board is out. Kissinger, out. Albright, out. These are big things happening, friends. Big things. And let's pray to God that the Constitution and the Bill of Rights prevail. The Republic needs to be saved. This is, as Sidney Powell has said, she said it 2 weeks ago, these are the most important 2 months of our Republic. Patriot, friend, Dr. Dave Janda, thank you so much for your time today. I really very much appreciate it. I know you took time away from your family to do this today on a Saturday. God bless you. God bless the country. Tell people how they can listen to you live, Operation Freedom, your Twitter. Give us everything.
Operation Freedom Radio Show is every Sunday. It's live from 2 to 5 Eastern. You just go to davejanda.com, hit the listen live button near the top of the homepage, takes you to Wham Talk 1600 streaming service, hit play, and you're with us. Great guests, great analysis, 2 to 5 Eastern every Sunday. Number 2, we have our YouTube channel still. It's wobbly, but it's kind of hanging on by a thread. Folks can go to Operation Freedom in the YouTube search bar, and they can go there. I upload a couple new YouTube presentations every week. And then we're also available at davejanda.com. We have the free, the public side. We also have the subscription side where we have extra content. We have access to all the podcasts going back 10 years. We have our WTF show, which is a geopolitical analysis show that I bring forward information from my contacts from behind the curtain. We have our Insider Insight interview. We bring someone forward from behind the curtain, talk about things that you'll never hear on the bought off lamestream fake media. That's all on the subscription side. And Twitter, they can either type in Dave Janda or they can type in DOC, Doc, DHJ, D as in David, H as in happy, J as in jam. And they can follow me on Twitter. Facebook, forget, I've been banned from there for like 3 or 4 months. I don't know. They shut that down. I was banned, by the way. I was banned on Election Day also on Twitter. They took me down for 12 hours, so I couldn't get the word out about Hammer's scorecard. And then if folks want to watch that interview with General McInerney free, go to davejanda.com, and there's a red bar. There are 3 things there: General McInerney, Sidney Powell talking about Hammer's scorecard, then a piece that OAN did on General McInerney and Hammer's scorecard. And then on the yellow bar above that, we have Sidney Powell speaking on Newsmax, again, about Hammer Scorecard. And we also have, we're going to just upload this today, that affidavit, that statement from Dr. Nayab that I think is one of the most important documents in this entire election fraud goat rodeo.
Yeah, all right. Well, we'll look for that. I appreciate everything you do. Well, go ahead.
One more. I want to thank you, Sean, for everything you do and how you do it.
No, thank you. Thank you for being on the front lines, man. We're in this thing. We are in the trenches together. You know, I've been saying this for 10 years. Yeah. We are in this mess together, but I never saw this mess becoming as deep and as terrible as it is now. You know, I thought we were just up against the Federal Reserve and the central bank for a long time. Now we're up against a globalist new world order, and we're up against a foe that wants us arrested and put away for what we think, for what we believe, God and country and republic. We don't want to arrest those people that were misled by the globalists and, you know, and Klaus Schwab and Joe Biden, Sleepy Joe, and the belief systems of selling out our nation to globalists. We don't want them arrested. We want them to understand. Put the republic first. Okay, the only people we want arrested are those that committed treason. That's it. Exactly. But right. They want to arrest us for loving God and country.
Because they fear the truth. We embrace the truth, they fear it.
100%. And guys, if you think I'm exaggerating, go watch the rants coming from people like Keith Olbermann. He's literally calling for the arrest of people like me and Janda and President Trump and patriots that love the country. These people are seething. They are foaming at the mouth. And it is, to me, it's the spirit of the Antichrist, Dave, because all we want is the Republic. Long live the Republic, and God bless our president. Guys, our guest has been Dr. Dave Janda. Thank you, Dave.
I thank you, Sean, for everything you do and how you do it.
Back at you, my friend. Thank you so much for your time today. And friends, just a little bit about how you can find me. BitChute is the biggest channel, but if you want to support me and my little team, we do have a Subscribestar page, Real SGT Report at Subscribestar. SGTReport.tv is a very inexpensive membership monthly thing, but you can always find my latest, newest videos sticky posted at the very top of SGTReport.com, the antidote to corporate propaganda. God bless you all. Thank you so much for tuning in. Pay it forward. Pass this on. Rip it. I don't care. I'm not making any money off this stuff. I don't have YouTube advertising. Rip it, share it, do whatever you want. Get the word out. We have to save the Republic. These are the most important 2 months of our Republic. God bless you. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.